Okay.
I think it's me with the fan. Let me.
All right. And we're live. Look, and we're live. All right. Hold on. Hold on, y'all. Oh, I didn't tell you guys, Rashawn and Kia, before we got on here. And the audience out there, if anybody's wondering why she's a really big glass of wine, it's been a day, you guys. I actually felt all 6 planets in retrograde today. That's all I got to say. I actually felt all 6 planets. All right, you guys. Oh, I'm really excited. I just want to say that there goes my paper. I'm really excited for this this panel tonight. I've wanted to do this one for a while now, actually, since everything happened with George Floyd and all that. But I wanted to make sure that I came about it in a way that was respectful, and I showed that I did my due diligence towards it, so that you guys, the women that come on to this panel, really have the ability to use their voices and have their stories be front and center. So I am really grateful for you ladies for coming on here and allowing me to be a part of the conversation and allowing the TUF Woman table to hold the space for these conversations to be had. So I've been looking forward to this for like some time now. So anyways, you guys, I am not going to waste any more time. I'm going to drop into my intro. That's my little piece of paper that keeps following you guys. And we are going to get started on this amazing panel. For anybody who's wondering, this is my Women of Color panel. I really, again, wanted to create the space to have these conversations. For anybody who's on social media right now, there is a lot of conversations being had, and there's a lot of back and forth. And I think sometimes it's very easy to get lost in the noise. So I wanted to provide a space that cut through that noise and allowed us to actually have conversations where we were able to hear each other. Because the one thing I've observed in the space right now is I don't think anybody's really listening. And if any of my guests want to talk about that later too, that is fine. But I just don't feel like anybody is listening. And because, we are not hearing each other, and especially we're not hearing the people that need to be heard, we're not really moving forward. So again, very excited for this, but let me drop into my intro and I will introduce my guests. So hello and welcome to the TUF Woman Roundtable, you guys. This is the table where I invite some amazing people to pull a seat up, join together in creating epic conversation. At TUF Woman I believe that all people have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident in who they are, and empowered to live a life that sets their soul on fire. I also believe that by one person showing up in their power, we give other people permission to step into their own power, thus giving us the opportunity to rise together. It is through this joined rising that we move ourselves and humanity forward to a more beautiful way of living and being. So you guys, pull up a seat, get you a big ass glass of wine if you need to, like myself, okay? Join us as we create epic conversations that move, and we remind everyone of how truly powerful we all are within. Woo! Yeah, look at that. Cheers. Cheers, you guys. And if any of you are wondering, sometimes a little reverb. So for anybody who does this on StreamYard, sometimes everybody's got to mute themselves. So I'm going to dive right into it. Today, I'm going to have each of my guests introduce themselves, and I'm going to have them tell their story of what it looks like to be a woman of color walking in the world today, what it means to what it looks like to live in their life, and just to, again, create conversations where we're really seeing how it is to walk in somebody else's shoes. So, Alyssa, I'm going to let you get this ball rolling, and Justine says, hello. Hello, Justine. Oh, I like her sassy. I like her sassy thing. Oh, this is the Justine, you had your conversation with Rashawn. Okay, I was like, I noticed the side thing. Okay. All right, so Alyssa, if you will kick us off and just tell everybody your story.
Yes. Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Alyssa. I am, if you guys have ever seen me, I've been here a couple times talking about coaching for moms, but ever since all this happened, I've completely shifted and now I'm an anti-racism coach. And I feel like that sort of plays into my story of just what it's like existing right now. I live in New York City, so I'm blessed to not have really highly traumatic experiences with racism. However, I feel like I would love Rashawn to talk about this too, but I really feel like microaggressions are just a thing that girl, right? So it's microaggressions are something that have just been a regular part of my life. And it took me until I was maybe like 22 to realize what these people were actually saying to me. And I feel like that's like the base foundation of like what it's like to like, for me at least, to like exist as like a Black woman, especially in a place as like normal as NYC is. But I feel like this what this last month has done for me, it's really been like, again, I don't know if like it's just, I feel like it's, I know it's not just me. And Rashad, if you want to talk about this too, but like this whole month has just been like unearthing a lot of just like deep down hidden like pain and sadness and frustration just being reflected off of like all of these things that's been happening. And like I feel like throughout these last years, at least like the last like maybe, how old am I? I'm 27. So maybe like the last like 7 or 8 years, like ever since Trayvon Martin was killed, there like you just seen like all these other Black men being murdered. And it got to a point where it was just like, when I heard about George Floyd a month ago, I was just like, another one. And that was it. Because it's like, we're used to this. We're used to hearing the same story, and it's frustrating. And then it was like exciting to see everyone instead like finally open their eyes and finally see what's going on. Like that was just like, oh, okay, like let's do this. Let's get this going. But with all this, you're seeing so many people's true colors come out. You're seeing so many people who were never about this. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking about a lot of like business owners that were just like, oh, y'all were taking our money this whole time and y'all did not care about our existence. Like, it's crazy. So that's like brought up a lot of just like, I don't want to say trauma, but like a lot of just like sadness and frustration, and like really being able to look at my entire life and seeing like what was really happening. And something that Ashley brought up before we started going live was I posted about my labor story with my daughter. And that was something, when it happened, I was like, that was a very weird thing for me, like that I experienced. And it wasn't until people like started posting their labor stories, and I was just like, wait a minute, like, did I experience like some like systemized racism there? And most likely that's what happened. But that's what this month has been for me, just like really unearthing like a lot of frustration that was just deep inside. And I feel like a lot of Black people have this like annoyance that's always there with people not understanding what we're going through. But seeing people outwardly talk about how they don't understand what we're going through has just brought that all out. So that's what it's been like for me this last month. But at the same time, trying to move towards, all right, what are we going to do next? And how are we going to shift the conversation now that people are actually listening? That was real long-winded. I'm going to let you go now.
Perfect. All right, Rashawn.
Wow, you did such an amazing job. I agree so much. Congratulations on your shift into anti-racism work. That's amazing. I feel very similarly to Alyssa in the sense that this has been so triggering. It's almost like living every racial trigger I've ever lived in my life in the span of however, this 2 weeks. I don't know how long it's been since he was shot now, a month. But like every single one, from microaggressions to thinking people were cool with me and then seeing posts on their page, me realizing, oh, okay. Or this is my favorite, people liking every single post on my page except for the posts I make about Black Lives Matter or Black things. Okay, I peeped that, people. All right, so that's been happening. Triggering from other people of color who are like, you should shut it, or BLM is awful. Everyone has their opinions about what's going on. And for me, that's been the most triggering. And I must say, and I agree with Alyssa, living in a big city, I live in Chicago and I live in the city. And you would think, right, they would be fine to walk around, everyone's cool. But I will tell you, the microaggressions have upped just in this, just crossing the street, or people giving you a hard time and this is the thing that I always try to express about racism or prejudice is it's not always what you say. People try to get out of it by saying the right thing, by being PC, by saying, I'm not racist, or, okay, but it's in your behavior. It's the way you treat people out in public. It's the way you push them away. It's the way you look at them. It's the way you look at them and make them feel dirty, unincluded, unimportant, like they shouldn't be there. This is the behavior underneath the language, and I must say I have been seeing that a lot on the streets as the racial tensions have bubbled up in this last time. And I agree with Alyssa that it is a good thing. And I was also surprised when people actually started to take notice, because like Alyssa, I was like, okay, here we go, another shooting. When people actually started like paying attention, I was like, okay, maybe we are shifting. So that's just kind of where I've been. It's been a very triggering, very emotional. I agree with everyone. I feel that the Earth's, Earth chakra has broken, right? This is all this pain that we've been carrying, right? And it's broken open. And this is a chance for us to heal. So that is really all I'm hoping to do. And I'm just excited to be here with you ladies. So I'll leave it there for now.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited, actually. I'm like, if you guys see me looking down, it's because I'm writing notes. I'm taking notes.
Me too. I was like writing on the side. Then I said, oh, I don't want the whole show to be like this. So I brought the book over here, and this is me writing my notes.
Question for you. Because you are a woman of color, and while you are not Black, you have also gotten to experience life from a different lens and a different perspective. So I'm actually very, really appreciative to have you here too. It's different. I love being able to see the different perspectives of everybody and what we've all kind of walked through. So if you will tell us, what has it been like to be a woman of color walking in this day and age right now?
Well, I have a 54-year-old story to tell you about being a woman of color, So, Alyssa, I'm twice your age. I was your age when you were born. And a day or a part of the day, when I say a part, means like morning, afternoon, evening, because nighttime I'm asleep. I'm not a night person. I'm a morning person. There has not been one part of the day of my life when someone did not make me feel that, oh, you're a woman of color. And I grew up in India. I came to America in 1992, so I was 26. But I grew up with a bias against me because I have a darker skin tone. In India, everyone is a different 50 shades of brown, but the light brown is white and the dark brown is black, And this is what people say in India. I'll tell you this, okay? Oh, she has great features, although she is slightly dark. There was an essay in our prose book in class 2 or in the 2nd grade, which was about the Black Beauty. It was about a horse. It's a story about a horse that was a Black Beauty. It was a stallion. You can go Google it. And in India, any lady who looks good, they'll say, oh, she's a Black Beauty. Means her skin is dark, because fair is lovely. Indians have bleaching creams. Like in America, you have tan lotions. In India, we have bleaching creams. Everybody wants to bleach themselves and be fair and lovely. And I think over the last 10, 15 years, because I've not been in India, I have found out that they have a bleaching cream even for men, fair and handsome. Yeah. So growing up, I was always told that, you are nice. You are nice. That means keep your head down and your mouth shut, and we will let you stay here in our circle. That was, so there is something that they literally say, and there is something that they implicitly say, that they implied, So like whenever I worked as an engineer, okay, that's my qualification. So, college degree. And whenever I went for an interview, they were all men, and I'm talking about, 88, 89, why is there a woman for a job over here? It should be men. And this is what people would tell me. You are just here for some pocket money. because your daddy pays your bills and later on your husband will pay. Why did you even go to college, to the university, and get a master's in computer science? You took away the earnings from two families. Because if a boy had your job, he would be feeding his daddy's family and take care of his own family. But they didn't say such things to brown boys. They only said them to brown girls. So yes, throughout I have heard this, like, why do you have to do this? And when I went in for an interview and I used to, like, one of the things they used to write in the remark is she's overconfident. They couldn't handle a girl who was confident. So they always said overconfident. Girls don't need to be that confident. So my classmates said it, my colleagues said it. So I have always lived with that. And I have skinny arms and legs, but I have big boobs, So men would have a conversation just looking at my boobs. My boss in Chicago, I used to work in Abbott Labs. Yep. Yeah. That's how they have a conversation with you. So I used to wear a size 18 so nobody can see me. It was almost, and so when I was pregnant, when I had my baby, it was like they came to know, like, oh, you're having a baby when? I'm like, in 2 weeks. So I was 8.5 months pregnant and nobody could tell because I used to wear those big clothes. So it is not, just from, and I used to work in Philadelphia. One of the things the recruiter told me, I worked as a software engineer. One of the recruiters told me, so where are you from? I said, I'm from here. I live here. No, where were you born and raised? I said, in India. Oh, so people in India speak English like you and they don't smell? Because Indians smell. Why aren't others like you? Yeah. So, it's like that undercurrent, that undertone. When I was in Texas and I lost my job, 2001, and I started doing Herbalife, and people told me, you will not be able to sell with a name like that. You'll have to change your name and your accent. I'm like, I can't. I have my accent. That is from India. You guys have an accent from here. Oh, we don't have an accent. I'm like, yes, you do have an accent. Accent means how you speak. So people asked me to change my name and my accent so I would be successful. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, the list is endless. So I'll just shut up over here. Alyssa, next question.
That actually works up. So I think this is a good first one to start. So one of the questions I really wanted to get down to, or the topics, was understanding our biases and why this is really important. And just to give everybody in the audience a little background, this conversation has come up for me a lot, and I've seen it come up a lot. And to me, it's like there's two sides coming up right now. It's the, oh, I don't have any biases, so I don't know what you're fucking talking about, which is my favorite one. Or I have biases, but I don't even know where to start. So it's like they're just sitting there, not doing anything. And then it's like on the other spectrum, it's like, is it really important to understand our biases and things like that? So I would love to know, ladies, your thoughts on why is it important to not only understand our biases especially in this climate? What does it mean moving forward? Just taking responsibility for our own biases and how we can show up to unlearn the things that we have been learning. Because for me, it was understanding that, well, I'll tell you one of my biases, and this was something I've had the chance to really unlearn, but I want to say a few years back, I used to be one of those people that says, I don't see color. And for me, what that meant for me was that I just wanted to acknowledge people where they were. And to me, I always said, well, that means I'm not racist. I don't see color. And someone's like, well, that's actually one of the most racist things that you can probably say, because you are negating someone's heritage and culture and everything else by stating that you're basically saying you don't see their color. And I didn't realize that when I was saying that. So that was a bias that I had to unlearn. So I would like you ladies' thoughts, and we're going to start with Rashawn, actually. I would like your thoughts on what it means to understand biases and why is that so important moving forward to know our own biases.
Well, I love that. And I think the most important thing to realize is that we all have biases. I agree with you. It's turning into this war of, non-Black people think, well, I didn't do it, or it was my ancestors, But those biases are passed down through families, you know. So even if you yourself, you know, didn't create actively systems that are in place that cause issues for people of color, some of those ideas are probably in you just from the culture we live in. Even if it didn't come from your parents, it can come from TV, the media. You know, I'm a marketer. Look at the media. The media is telling all kinds of messages about Black people, all people. So we all have biases. And I guess what I've been trying to say in the lives that I've been doing is, you know, not to condemn people and run after them and scream racist, but to call it out and be like, hey, this isn't cool. You know, and in doing that, I've come across as, you know, racist, and, you know, oh well, because I think it's the kind of thing where if you've experienced it, you know you've experienced it. And if you haven't experienced it, you are blessed that you haven't experienced it. But then take a look at what you really think about people. What do you really think about people when you see them on the street? All kinds of different people. Just go people watch and just think, like, how do I feel about this person? Go sit in a Starbucks and just think, and you'll realize we all have prejudices, you know. So nobody is perfect. That's all I'm trying to say with this. I just hope that people who are ready to look at this is our shadow, you know. Coaches who talk about shadow work, who do shadow work. I know Ashley loves that type of stuff. This is the shadow. This is our collective shadow. Okay. This is it. This has been bubbling under everything we've ever done as a society, and it has broken forward to the point where we have to talk about it. But this has been there in every conversation, you know, every job, every da-da-da-da. So I just really hope that for those who are ready, and I have seen those people, and those people, Ashley being one of them, and other people who have supported this discussion, I do see the people who are ready moving forward. So I guess what I would say is, don't be afraid if you have a bias. It's okay. We need to be exploring these things, figuring out where they're coming from, and pulling that weed out and figuring out where we can go from here. That's how I kind of look at the biases.
You're on mute, Ashley.
Oh, you know what? I was saying something so epic for a second, but no, I was going to say, you know, I agree. It's really important. And I think what I've seen coming up, I love that you talk about the shadow work, and I only want to mention this for a minute, is how reactive people have become. How incredibly reactive has become. It has become in and of itself a triggering conversation. So I would like both Kia and Alyssa to elaborate a little bit on what their thoughts are on biases and why these are so important as well. And then I actually want to talk, this wasn't a topic, but I think this is going to be something that all of you can dive into, and that's the bypassing that seems to be happening, especially in the healing section and the coaching section of this entire movement. So I feel like this is a really good one. But Alyssa, I'd like to get your thoughts on biases, and Kia as well. But then if you ladies are okay, I would really like to discuss your thoughts on the bypassing and just the kind of bulldozing over of everything in this space right at the moment. So Alyssa, if you want to unmute and tell us your thoughts on biases, and then we'll get to Kia, and then yeah, we'll move to that, because I think that you guys ladies are going to have some really
perspectives on this. Whew, girl. That's one of those like underlying thoughts that I've had, and I haven't had people to talk to about it yet. So I'm just like, I'm ready for that one. But talking about biases, I like thinking about like why it's so important. Again, I'm not going to tell you like my whole life story or like whatever, but thinking about like internalized racism and like systematic racism, right? I love what Rashawn said of just like the way to notice your biases is just like people watch and see what you're thinking about people. And I feel like another way to like to think about that, especially people who are like back to work or are around people, notice that when people are talking to you about other things and how you're internalizing that. So just like really quick, going back to like my labor story with my daughter. I went in, I was like in a lot of pain. They refused to give me an epidural, blah, 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 right? And turned out I needed one, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Working backwards, in the medical field, there are a lot of like biases around Black people, Black women especially, about how they can handle pain, or if it's just a Black person not in labor, how like they may be exaggerating their pain so that they can get medication for free, whatever. Nonsense, but it is what it is. So thinking about the PA who denied me my epidural, thinking about now the nurses who were around that PA that denied me my epidural, they most likely have biases because they believed whatever it was that the PA said. And that's another way to look at your biases. And that's another reason why it's important to notice your biases, because that could be costing someone's life. If you're sitting there believing whatever it is that someone is saying, not realizing that it's an actual internal bias and you haven't worked through it yet, then the person whose bias that you have against could be suffering because of that. And it sounds like a very like, oh, well, these are my own thoughts, like it shouldn't be affecting other people, but it is, because it affects the way that you treat them or mistreat them. Like if the nurses at my hospital, if they had worked through their biases, if they had understood like what was going on, if they had knowledge of microaggressions, all that whole instance would have been treated very differently than people who don't check their biases, because they're believing whatever it is that the PA says, oh, she's not in that much pain. If they didn't have any biases, they would have asked, why do you think that? But since they do have unchecked biases, they were able to be like, yeah, she's right, for whatever reason, not realizing that what the PA was saying was most likely like, she's a Black woman, she can handle it. She's young, she can handle it. So that's why like checking your biases is so important, because you don't realize like the outward effect that it has on the people who you have a bias against. So that's my little piece on that.
I was gonna say, I agree with what you said, is you don't understand who you have an influence over. I think that's like the other edge of that bias sword, is we don't realize who we're influencing through our own biases, right? You know, I mean, look at children as they grow up. I think one thing I saw is like racism, you know, you're not born with racism. That's what you're taught. So, you know, especially being a parent, I think it's incredibly important for us to understand our own biases, because we're raising that next generation that's going to go out there and determine how the temperament of the world is going to develop. So I think as a parent, especially, it's incredibly important. You know, I need to be able to have those conversations with my children and be open to the conversation as well. So Kia, I'd love your thoughts on biases, and then I'm like real excited to get to the next one. I feel like it's gonna be good. I just need my Sean. I need my tip.
Whenever you want me to shut up, just raise your hand, because once I get on my soapbox, I just like, okay. So let me talk about biases. You know, and while I'm listening to you, you know, Alyssa and Rashawn, I'm almost tearing up. I'm drinking water so I don't cry, because everything is so personal to me. Everything is so personal to me. And, you know, I may get into, you know, this bias and bypass altogether. So if anyone says like, I don't have bias, you know, so they are trying to tell you like they are not human, you know, because every human being has it. It's part of, you know, our human DNA. We like something and we don't like something. I'm a hypnotherapist, you know, every memory within us has a charge, either a positive one or a negative one, either a pleasurable one or a painful one. If something makes us go away, that is a painful one. If something makes us go towards, that's a pleasurable one. So that is the basis, that is the crux of a bias, you know. Like if I see someone who's not like me and I'm at a stoplight and I look for my, you know, in olden days when we had windows that you could shut the door or something like that, that's a bias, you know. That's a bias. That's a simple bias. And in 2016, this is what happened, you know, like I have friends or colleagues. I don't have friends, you know, I'm too big a mouth to have friends. But I have had people tell me, you know, they're talking too much about racism. It wasn't like this 50 years ago. It wasn't like this 40 years ago. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. And look, it was always there. It's just that people didn't talk about it, or you did not know someone who talked about it, but it was always there. Now, I am an immigrant. I'm a first generation immigrant. I know people who are first generation, second generation, even third generation immigrants. Okay. And this is what they say. Oh, that's a black and white thing. It has got nothing to do with me. I'm like, what? Yeah. Another thing I'll tell you, because I live in Southern California, so we have a lot of, people from the southern countries, Central American, Southern America, South America. And this is what they say when they come here. They would rather their child date someone of a fairer skin. Okay, one. Another one. Now, if their child is still dating someone from one of those countries, they better be of a lighter color. They, like, somebody comes to me and says, this is my girlfriend or this is my boyfriend. And then I'm like, oh, where are they from? Because they have come with their relationship issues. Oh, she's, from blah, blah, blah country, but she's white. So I'm like, So you see the bias always exists. And so if something, and this is what, as an NLP practitioner, I'll tell you to the audience, I'm speaking to the audience here, if you feel irritated, triggered, something uneasy, uncomfortable with something that's going on outside in the outside world, look within. You have to, and this is a cathartic process, you have to go through it. And, sit with a paper and pen. And I'm a writer. Sit with a paper and pen and sit with it. Even if you can pause your life, don't stop your life. Don't pause. Don't stop your day. Don't just press the pause button in your life and go through it. Go through a reflection, or just have a conversation. If you're a talker and don't want to write, talk to someone about it and be honest and candid about it, and you will notice where your bias lies. And this is what I will tell everyone in the audience over here. Don't do things that you don't want your grandchild to do or have to deal with. Don't say things that you don't want your grandchild to have to hear or have to deal with. And if you can live like that every day, like, people ask me, what should I do? I don't want to tell people what to do. I'm like, would you like your grandkid to do this? Oh, no. I'm like, then don't do it. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Would you like your grandchild to have to deal with this? No. I'm like, then don't deal with it. Then don't do it. Because it is energy. Whatever you send out will come back to you multiple fold. Because a slight tremor, in the mountains creates an avalanche in the bottom. A slight tremor here creates the whole earthquake over there, that the island of New Zealand, just moves, by 10 inches or whatever towards Australia. That is how stuff happens. Karma is a bitch and it will bite everyone. It keeps score and never forgets. There you go. I'll shut up.
I was like, I'm going to start talking, but I got to take my mute off. Okay. It's like, all right. I like how you end it, Kia. You're like, I'm going to stop talking now and shut up. It's okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to now address the elephant in the room. And Alyssa, I'm glad you're excited for this. I think I'm going to get started with you. But I'm going to address the elephant in the room, which is the bypassing in the online space and the bypassing in the entrepreneurial space, and what it means to either stand for the Black Lives Movement or not. I think we, like you said, we have two sides coming up right now, and that's the one side. It's like, I want to actually see change. So we need to have these conversations and we need to have them now. And the other side's like, why do you want to talk about this? As Kia said, it's like, oh, this didn't exist. These people going, oh, well, I didn't know racism still existed. Like, that blew my mind. I've seen that. Like, what do you mean? Like, acting like this hasn't been the way it's been since even the civil rights movement started. So, Alyssa, I'd like your thoughts on the act of bypassing in the entrepreneurial and online space right now in regards to Black Lives Matter and just this entire movement as a whole, because I feel like there is a lot of negating the spiritual, and or not the spiritual, but the shadow work that really needs to be done. Rashawn, you said this is shadow work. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And if we're not ripping these Band-Aids off of a wound that's highly, like, I'm going to use this in the most highly infected, this is a wound that we have not cleaned. This is the wound that we have not allowed to heal. So I'd like your thoughts, all your ladies' thoughts on the bypassing that is even the subtle bypassing that's taking place, like the women being shamed for saying things in support, or, oh, it's okay, you can process this any way you feel. If you feel traumatized, you don't have to. Oh, that was my least favorite one. If you feel traumatized by this, you don't have to deal with it. I'm like, but there's no privilege there, you guys. There's no privilege. That's my other there's no privilege there. So yeah, Alyssa, I'd like you to get started, and then we'll go next. Where's Sean next?
Oh my gosh. Like, there was a post, I don't remember where I got this post from, but when I read it, I was just like, yes. And it's just like, there are speaking about coaches specifically, we do the work of working with people and going inside with them to help them move forward, to help them reach their goals. How are you now going to sit here? I'm getting annoyed, I'm sorry. Like, how are you now going to sit here with all of this and act like this isn't something that people also have to deal with, right? Or another thing that I'm seeing a lot is like, it's a lot of like minor gaslighting of just like, yeah, I get you experienced this, but you can still like choose to react in this way, or think you can still choose to think in a specific way about what it is that you experience. And you would never do that to someone who has experienced like sexual assault. You never do that to anyone who's experienced a trauma that is like more universal. But when it comes to race and racism, then it's more like, oh, well, okay, yeah, I understand why this issue is important to you, but you get to choose your thoughts about it, and you get to choose to move forward, and it's like, no, these are like deeper ingrained things that we have been holding on to for God knows how long, and they're coming out now. And like, what I'm thinking about right now is like, when all this happened, like I saw a lot of like business Facebook groups held by coaches, okay, that were just like, oh, we're not going to be talking about this in here. Oh, what does this have to do with business? What does this have to do with being a mom? Well, if you're Black, you know what this has to do with business and how this has to do with being a mom. A mom? Like, come on now. Like, people's children are being murdered, and you're going to sit here and tell me, what does this have to do with being a mom? It has nothing to do with you, but it has to do with me and my children and my family's like, come on. I've clearly been holding this in for so long. But like, it's like, it's bypassing. It's like, okay, I understand that was sad. So anyway, let me tell you about I don't care. Sis, I don't care. I really, and it's almost like, I feel like there's like this like mental checklist that people have of just like, I was talking about it, I think a couple days ago, about like Blackout Tuesday. All right, we posted the Black Square. Check. I changed my little Facebook profile to say Black Lives Matter. Check. And that is all the work that I'm doing. And then you talk to these people, and then you ask them, hey, what work are you doing? What are you doing? And then it's like, I'm learning and listening. I don't know about y'all, but if I hear one more learning and listening, my hair is going to be pulled out, and I barely have hair. I'm tired. Like, do something with the learning and the listening. Take action, talk to people, do something. And within the business area, within the coaching area, it's like, we don't want to acknowledge the fact that this is something that needs to be an ongoing conversation, that this is something that is affecting people's businesses, is affecting people's lives in their day-to-day. Like with coaching, we want to keep pushing people forward and pushing them forward. And I get that. But in order to push them forward, we have to look at their blocks. And if being triggered by all of these events is a block, then that's something that you need to learn how to deal with. And that's something a lot of people don't even want to acknowledge. So that's all I'm about to say. Rashana, I'm gonna let you go.
Well, again, I mean, I agree completely. I look at this in two ways. The spiritual bypassing is probably one of the most heartbreaking parts. I look at this in two ways. One, as a user of healing services, and then someone who's been a coach a healer and a therapist. Okay, I'm a trained therapist. One thing that concerns me about the coaching field is that when you go to school to become a therapist, you have to take so many classes on ethics. You take oaths saying you're not going to hurt, I'll do no harm. You know, when you say I'm going to go out there and help people, there are certain ethics that one must adhere to, or else you're going to go out and damage people emotionally. And what concerns me is that the coaching field doesn't have this. Now, I'm not a huge fan of regulations, and I'm not saying I want the coaching field to turn into this, you know, I love that it's unregulated in a lot of ways because I can do my own thing. And I think a lot of us entrepreneurs feel that way. However, this is a concern because we don't have any sort of standard as to how we should be helping others. I will say from my experience, and I've worked with a lot of healers myself, because it's really interesting, Alyssa, our stories are very similar. I mean, I'm not a mom, but in 2016, I became very sick. And actually, this is how I started on my entrepreneurial journey, because I was working in the mental health field and I was super stressed. I got really sick, had to stop everything. But a huge piece of why I got so sick was because the doctor that I had at the time was basically ignoring and minimizing my symptoms for a really long time. Okay. I was basically wasting away. I always had chronic headaches. I also had an anemia that he didn't even check for. I didn't find that out. Anyway, long story short, again, I'm not going to tell you my sob story, but this issue of Black women in health is huge. So I also had that experience. And I will say I've worked in hospitals, and I have also been a patient multiple times in hospitals. And I can tell you right now, that's not a place I'm itching to go to as a Black female. My mom is 79. I'm her primary caregiver. I have to take her to the doctor and to the hospital to advocate for her and the things that I see happening. So it's very concerning. But one thing that I also wanted to say about receiving as a healer, for those coaches who are ready, of whatever color, you can do amazing work with women of color, because I have worked with people who, they were amazing. They were there for me, you know, really wanted to see me do well. But as soon as I brought up an issue that had to do with something that I experienced in my life as a Black person, it would be one of two reactions. One would be shock. Like, I can't believe anybody would ever do that to you. Like, why would anybody ever do that to you? And then you just end up explaining why someone would do that to you, and then your healing session is ruined. Or the next one is, oh yeah, well, you know, that's awful, but I don't think that's really why you're traumatized. I think it's really this past life, or, you know, this, you know. So this is my issue with that. The spiritual bypassing is very, very concerning. If you are a healer, a coach, and you have said to yourself and your higher power, whomever that is, that you are out here to help people, then that means you're supposed to be able to help everybody. And if you can't do that, you know, then okay, you can have a niche of all Caucasians or all whatever. That's fine. That's your choice. You can do that. But yeah, it's very, very, very painful to see people that you respect and that have great platforms, and you thought before this happened they had an amazing mission, and then you see through certain actions that you may have realized that a little too late. So that has been hard as a Black person in spirituality in general. I grew up in the spiritual community. My mom was super into metaphysics. So I grew up around a lot of this stuff, and I've grown up in different spiritual communities. And this is something that happens offline as well. This isn't just an online space. You know, many times in spiritual communities, the issues of being Black in America or Black wherever you live tend to be very minimized out of fear of people really just owning it and discussing it. Honestly, that's how I feel. So that's what I got for that one.
I love that. And before you get started, I was going to point this out. Terry said, Rashawn, I have a friend who seems to have a very similar problem. Can I connect her with you if she wants to chat? And she said she dealt with the same with her mom. So yes, please connect. Kia, yeah, I like your thoughts on the bypassing that's going on, because I think this is really important. And this, again, fuels into the whole fact that my view on everything right now is that we're not having the conversations. Like, we are trying, but you have literally two walls coming at each other going, we need to talk about this, and the other part, it's like, oh, well, if we just keep bearing it like we've been doing for the last God knows how long, it's going to go away. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Right? So, yeah, I would love your thoughts.
Yeah. So I have to talk about bypassing. When I went in for my first interview, I was offered 300 rupees less. Why? Because I was a woman. I had a master's degree, and the other applicants had bachelor's degree, but they were men. So they got 300 rupees more, rupees is the Indian currency, than me, because I was a woman. And I had a master's degree in computer science, and these were just random engineers in electrical, mechanical. But in those days, I'm talking about the late 80s, when everybody wanted to come to America and be in the IT. So I had to teach them how to write the code, but I was paid less than them. Bypass. That's the first thing of bypass. You're a girl, why do you need it? Okay, so that's what bypass is personal for me. Now too, on Facebook, on social media, they tell you to have a personal page, they tell you to have a business page. And you might not agree, but I'm a shy, quite an introverted person. If there was no internet, if I was not part of the invention team 30 years ago, I wouldn't be reaping the harvest of the internet, because I can write, and so that's how I find people, or people find me. I don't go find people. I'm not into sales. So when I'm, writing my own stuff, this is what my marketing coaches and the business coaches tell me. Don't talk about, all this stuff. I'm like, I'm not political, but this is a fact of life. I don't put politics, I don't put religion, but this is a fact of life. If you do this, then I'm like, you told me not to do anything personal on business page. This is my personal page. This says, if you keep doing this, you will not get clients. So I'm not supposed to write about the Women's March. I'm not supposed to write about, in anything that happened. I'm not supposed to put, black on my profile. I'm not supposed to do that. My marketing coaches and my business coaches have told me that if you are doing this, this is sabotage for your business. And I'm like, this is my personal page. This is not even my business page. Why can't I? You told me I can write anything. If I can write that I went hiking and I went to the zoo and I did this with my daughter's birthday, my son's wedding, whatever I can. Why can't I write about that I went to Women's March? No, you can't. See, that is what I'm talking about. And so what do? My easiest option is to fire my coach. Now I have the same coach as Ashley. And even once he commented, you shouldn't be talking about politics. I'm like, it's not politics. Everything is politics. If this is politics, everything is politics. So I sent him a side note saying, hey, you want me to fire you too? You're supposed to be here to support me. Yeah, I can talk more, but I would love to hear your questions and others.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation with the same person. And in fact, that's actually where the biases conversation came from, because I was on a panel and we were talking about, should you have a cultural disclaimer on your business? My first thought was, a what? Like a cultural disclaimer. I said, so basically you're saying that I will only work with these people if they fit into this mold. I said, is that what you're telling me? Like, and you see my hands, I'm like, I have to really emphasize this part. And I had to stop myself for a second, because Florida Ashley was just ready to run out the gate, running her mouth, listen. But I was like, no. We're going to breathe and we're going to come back. And I said, listen, and that's where my bias part came in. It's like, if your view is that, because a person is from a culture or maybe has a difference in opinions and perceptions, that you can't work with them, then first and foremost, I don't know that coaching is your thing and you should be doing it. Because like Rashawn says, if you've entered into coaching, when I think about it, when I went into coaching, my view on it was, I'm here to help everybody. And if I have something of a personal nature, like a view or perception towards someone, then I need to figure that out first before I go out there and try to help everybody. Because at the end of the day, if I have conditions on who I'm going to help, then I'm not really being of service. I'm not being utilized in the best capacity. So I exclaim that if you are struggling and feel that you need a cultural disclaimer for your business, you need to reconsider the business you're in, and you need to take a deep dive into your own beliefs around why you would need a cultural disclaimer. And I tried to say it in as calm a tone as I could, because I was just like, Lord Jesus. And, and again, it comes back to the conversations though, we can't, that was a big one for me, because it's like, why are you getting triggered? And that to me was like, you need to take a step back, and instead of reacting to the conversation, ask yourself, like, how best can I come in and respond? Because that's what I feel like a lot of people are doing. We're all getting triggered. And instead of going, that I don't understand that person's trauma, how can I better understand it? We're going, that just makes me feel like shit, and I feel defensive, and I'm going to come and I'm going to attack you from that space. Like, that's what I see happening. And so that's why, again, to all this, all this stuff, I think that these are really important conversations to have, because, I could have gone around thinking, Alyssa, that all Black women were strong and they didn't need pain medication. And look at what the traumas that has begot because of it. Imagine someone who's a doctor, again, look at what happened because you had these people who thought. So to me, this is important. And I'm so thankful for you guys for bringing these perspectives to the forefront, because until we have these conversations and we start triggering people and we start diving into this, we're not going to progress forward. I feel like we're always going to have this coming up, these people going, listen, you went through trauma, but I wanted to write a post the other day. It says my least favorite phrase in the English language is, yeah, but it's like, what, I kind of hear it, but I don't want to hear it at the same time. Like, yeah, but it's like,
okay, can I say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because like, in NLP, like when people, because I'm all about words. So when people say, yeah, but, and you're following everything with the yeah, but, and you're just following the but, it's a pretty stinky ride. You don't want to be on that ride,
Oh, okay.
Oh, and one more thing. I want to talk, because we are on the topic of bypass. So to everyone who's like wearing a mala or wearing this flowy robe or whatever and considering themselves quite spiritual, and the worst form of ego is spiritual ego. Whenever you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to go all spiritual, you know what your ego says? Yeah, let's do this together. Because the ego feels cornered, and it says, oh, let's get spiritual together. Let's get all those clothes and all those malas and all those trinkets and all those pictures, and let's put on all our essential oils, and let's speak in a certain way and call ourselves yogi. How about that? Yeah, let's call ourselves. You go to a yoga class and suddenly you're a yogi, and I'm like, what? No. Go to a Pilates class and then you'll be a pilot or something like that.
Okay.
So.
All right. So this was something that Alyssa talked on. This is going to be our last topic for this, but I thought that this was really important because for anybody who's new to the show, something that's really important to me, I used to be a trainer. So I firmly believe that in the process of creating conversations, we allow the space for solutions to start being presented, and who better to present solutions than the people that have to walk through these situations every single day. So to me, the one thing that I wanted to talk on, and I feel like we're going to have many more panels. In fact, Rashawn is hosting a similar panel tomorrow. I'm really excited to be a part of it, so I can't wait. But I wanted to talk one last thing on what it means to be a better ally. So you guys each touched on about what are people doing in the behind the scenes, like the listening and the learning. Like I'm listening and learning. I listen and learn to everybody every single fucking day. Like if you're not listening and learning every single day, then I don't know what you're doing. But that aside, it's like I said this before. I didn't want to be like a keyboard warrior. In fact, I had a serious disconnect in the beginning. Like, you know what? I don't want to just be going on Facebook and be repinning and be reposting. I'm like, oh, look, I'm sitting on here posting this post and talking the talk and all that. It's like I wanted to make sure that I was actually doing things that made me a powerful ally in the background. So it's like For me, it was asking myself, how do I get involved with the community where I'm at to create change here? You know, how do I have the conversations with my children and make sure that I'm instilling in them, because that's the next generation. So ladies, Rashawn, we will start with you and then we'll go to Kia and Alyssa, if that's good. I would love your thoughts on what it means and what you feel like people, especially women of privilege, white women like myself, can do to be better allies in this fight that we're moving for, to be better allies in this conversation and continue creating a more united and truly equal front for everybody.
Sorry. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. The whole thing I've been saying the whole time is being willing to have the conversation, which you clearly are, and you are obviously a positive ally, as are many lovely ladies who are listening right now. I'll give a couple of examples of people I thought were great allies to me. I got a message from a lady in my Facebook community, like right when this first broke, and she was like, I don't know what it's like to be Black, but I'm assuming you're probably going through something right now. Can I help you? Can I talk to you? I was like, that's amazing. Okay. Because the honesty to say, I don't experience it, but I could tell from the climate, you might be stressed, you know? That to me was beautiful. And she knows who she is. So, you know, really just being willing to have the conversation. I think the hardest thing for someone who's putting themselves out there and saying, because again, with Kia, I agree. You know, a lot of people don't want to inject politics. And, you know, technically speaking, as a marketer, I'd probably tell you, you really shouldn't. But I will tell you, I didn't go into business to shut my mouth, because I could go work at a 9 to 5 and be controlled. There, I might shut my mouth. But you know, this is a platform I created for myself to create freedom for myself and others. So I'm not going to shut it. And, you know, I was really on the fence about what people would think. Luckily, so far, my community has stuck with me. And if people have left, I haven't seen it. And if they have left, it's okay. I mean, you know, because ultimately, then I wasn't the person that they were supposed to learn from to begin with. But being willing to have the conversation, not being defensive, when we stick ourselves out there as people of color, or even as allies, white women allies have said to me, I'm afraid to post something because everybody's going to come for me. So, you know, it's the defensiveness that I think has a lot of us feeling like the allyship. It's like, Justin, I understand, goes so much further than like a dissertation of like why someone understands like Black history and blah, blah. Like, I don't need you to be like a scholar on like everything. I just need you to understand that this is a human issue that many people on this earth have been going through their entire lives. And like Kia said, have been programmed to be quiet about it, because look what happens when we open our mouths. So to me, you know, really listening to the women of color, featuring them like you did, Ashley. You know, I had another woman reach out and said, I'd love to feature you in my group. You know, just making the women of color that you do know visible, and then calling things out as you see it. And I know it's hard, and even for me, like, you know, and I was joking a lot, but I was getting crazy. Like, I was like typing on people's things, because I mean, the things I was seeing, it was breaking my heart. It was literally breaking my heart. You know, the things that I was seeing and things that people were saying. You don't necessarily have to go all keyboard crazy like I did, but if you see something inappropriate in a group like Alyssa was talking about, call it out. And I do see I have to say, I see a lot of Caucasian coaches doing that. So I just want to give a shout out to the people who are doing the right thing, because I can understand also that this could be a very confusing time on how to even be an ally. So I get that as well. So I just want to give props to those who really are trying. And trust me, those who are trying, we feel it, we see it. I would think you ladies, you could tell me what you think, but I can feel it. I know. So yeah, being willing to have the conversation, being willing to look at someone's story, look at someone's pain, and acknowledge it, and realize that it informs every part of them, every part of their day, every part of their business. You can't wash off the Black. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're born with it. and I'm grateful for it and I love it, but it's not going anywhere. Every time I walk out the house, no one's going to be confused about what race I am. So everything I do, right, is informed by that. So just please just listen to people. And one thing I just really want to touch on really, really quickly, and I don't want to take up too much time, but this whole issue of BLM, because this is one of the things that's been breaking my heart. You know, there's all this talk about BLM being corrupt and, you know, that it's this awful movement. Okay, and I've touched on this in a couple lives. I'll be super quick, but this is another way people have been minimizing, in my opinion, coming out with all these facts about why BLM is corrupt. Now, I want everyone to go after this and read about BLM. BLM is run by the Democrats. Look up George Soros. The Democrats have not always had the best interests of Black people in mind, even though many Black people think that they do. This is a huge reason why I am a proponent of moving out of the two-party system, because what happens is the red fighting the blue, guess what they use to fight? Legitimate issues. Racism is legitimate. LGBT issues are legitimate. Women's rights are legitimate. Okay, but the government, and don't forget it's an election year, so the governments are going to feed on this political climate in order to get what it is that they want. So those of you who are saying, you know, BLM is corrupt, this and that and the other, it's not a perfect system. I haven't donated any physical money to BLM. I don't donate a lot of physical money to a lot of organizations because I'd like for people to look up the Red Cross, for instance. They don't always allocate their funds where you may think that they are. So just please, this really, really bothers me when I see people finding any reason possible to decredit the movement, any reason possible. So all that I'm asking is those of you who think that BLM is not good or legitimate or has some validity, please look into some of the other movements that have happened in our culture and look at some of the political divisiveness that have happened behind those, and then form an opinion about BLM. So that's what I got.
And I'm gonna let Alyssa go because she raised her hand, and thank you for that. Or I'm glad you touched on that because I saw that too. So I was like, oh my lord, it's like the mass debate right now, man. Jesus Christ. Do your research, people. All right, Alyssa.
Really quick, like just touching on what Rashawn said about BLM, like I really want people to understand too, because I've been getting into these conversations with people, like people DMing me, what is BLM, blah, 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 blah. Okay. 99% of the people that are saying Black Lives Matter, we are not talking about the organization. The organization is the organization. We are talking about where the organization started from, which was a hashtag, the movement. We're talking about the movement. It's like when someone talks about Me Too. If there's an organization called hashtag Me Too, okay, but 99% of the time, you're talking about the movement. And I want you guys to also pay attention to, like, Rashawn brought up a really good point of just like, this is an election year. People are going to be using this and twisting it in ways so that you can have a different view on it. I want you guys to realize the language that is being used around talking about Black Lives Matter. A lot of people are like afraid, people who don't understand what's going on, they're using the language, the Black Lives Matter organization is. The Black Lives Matter organization, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, we're most like when you see Black people say Black Lives Matter, we don't have any affiliation to this organization. Like Rashawn, I am not donating money to the Black Lives Matter organization because I saw the same thing. Like they're like putting it in a bunch of different places. When I say Black Lives Matter, I mean the statement, the hashtag Black Lives Matter, point blank period. But when you see it in the news, they talk about the organization. Why? To cause fear, to make it seem like it's this thing, this sort of like there's an agenda happening with this organization and they're like, whatever. And it's like, but when we talk about Me Too, it's the Me Too movement. That's what we need to shift the language and the conversation to, is the movement, Black Lives Matter movement. So that's like really quick touching on what Rashawn said. I just want to like bring that out there because I had a conversation about this a couple days ago and I was just like, why are they talking about it in this way? This is why people are confused, And this is why people see it as like this thing. And like Rashawn said, like when we say Black Lives Matter, then they come and deter the conversation talking about like, oh, the organization did this and da 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 da, and you can't trust. And it's like, that's not what we're talking about, but go off on your conversation. All right. That's all I wanted to say about that. I forgot what the actual question was, Ashley.
Oh, it was just, this was, you were actually the one who inspired this. So what does it mean to be a better ally? And how can we show up in space to be a better ally?
Yes. Okay. And I want to also, again, piggyback on what Rashawn said. Like, there are a ton of people who are really like, I see a lot of y'all. They are just like attacking all these Karens, and y'all are like ready to fight. And I'm just like in the background, like, yes, thank you. Because that's what I don't know about you, Rashawn, but like the first week or the first 2 weeks, that's all I was doing. I was just in bed, just on my phone, like attacking the Karens. And that was exhausting. It was mentally exhausting. It was physically exhausting. It was terrible. But shifting into the conversation of how to be an ally, continue having conversations. And I really want you guys to also pay attention to how you're having the conversations. I actually like literally just did a live on this, so that's why it's like fresh in my head. But like making sure that what your intentions are with having a conversation, especially with people that are actually close to you, like family members, friends. The point of all these conversations is not to like isolate the racists and put them all in this one bubble and like we can all live our normal lives. But the way that we decide to have these conversations with people, that's what happens. They're not listening or coming into the conversation angry. They're not listening if you're attacking them. And then what happens is they may remove themselves from the conversation, but they got their little group of little racist friends that they're still going to go to. A lot of these people have positions of power, and they're still going to go out and still be racist because they're not listening to what you're saying. So really shifting the way that you're having these conversations to open it to be a conversation. And I'm only talking to people who have the bandwidth to do this. Like Black women, we've been doing this for way too long. Like, I'm not talking to you guys because we've been doing this for too long. But if you guys want, like, I'm talking like right now to like the white women, like if you guys want to really help, this is the best way to do that because you're able to have these constructive conversations with people and have it be a constructive conversation. And like we were talking before about like coaches and people who do healing work, we are taught how to speak to people. We're taught how to teach people to like open their minds and to like think of new things and to see new possibilities. Enter the conversation like that. Because in that way, they'll be able to actually go ahead and like think about what they're saying, especially when we're talking about like microaggressions. 90% of the people, when they use microaggressions or they like talk in microaggressions, they don't realize that it actually comes from a prejudiced place. But if you question them on that, then it may bring out where that even came from, right? Like in the story that I told about my labor, if the nurses just asked a simple question to the PA of, why aren't we giving her an epidural? Or why are you, whatever, like why? Her microaggression was that she was not giving me pain medication. The person who is being an ally can then go into that position instead of saying, oh my God, you're being racist. That girl's not going to listen to you. She's going to dismiss you and keep doing what she's doing. However, if you go into this, and I'm not saying don't feel angry because this is a very triggering and angry topic, but I'm saying like release your anger with like your friend, your partner, whatever, then come into the conversation like with the intention of having a productive conversation so they can listen to you. That's the whole point of this, having people listen to you and chip away at their like belief system and ideologies like one bit at a time, versus what we really want to do is just like, it seems normal, right? It seems like you should be able to like, why are we even having this conversation? Like it's clear that this is racist. It's clear that this is whatever, but they don't see it that way. So just really being able to have those conversations in that manner will actually be able to like create some shifts. And that was like, it was so long and I hope it made sense, but yeah, that is all. I'm done for now.
It did. I like that you said choose the intention of your conversation, because actually I feel like that's really the one thing I've noticed is that we are going into these conversations automatically geared to react. Like we are like, you know what? This person is racist. I don't even give a shit about any of their background beliefs around why they might feel this way. And we take compassion and everything else and we introduce right and wrong into the conversation. And I always say that when we introduce right and wrong, when it becomes about us being right and somebody else being wrong, we're not having the conversation anymore. Now we're like, let me prove a point. And until you get my point, I'm just going to keep bulldozing you over. I don't give a shit. Like, so I think you make a tremendous statement in stating, it's like, how are we having the conversation? And that's something that I had to learn. It's like, am I just going in there barreling people over with like my knowledge or my expertise or why I think this is wrong? Or am I going, like, why do you see things that way? Because again, when we come from that perspective, we open the conversation. Like you said, we allow the conversation to have a space versus just coming on, you know what, you're wrong because you think that way. And I've never seen a conversation come and it starts like, you're wrong because you think like that. Because then you got people like, this bitch right here just did this. Okay, like we're not having a conversation now. Because I know that's me. If someone comes at me like that, oh, we're not having a conversation now, apparently. I'm going to go now. All right, but Kia, because we're getting towards the end, I would love your thoughts on what it means to be a better ally, and how people can show up in that space. And then we're going to end this. And this has been insanely amazing. So I would love your thoughts, Kia.
Thank you. Okay, so first thing, a conversation is a conversation. I'm talking to the audience here. A conversation is a conversation, okay? Which means there's a dialogue, okay? You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. When you step into a conversation, do more listening and less talking. Number 2, a conversation is not an argument, okay? It's not a debate. It's not someone is going to go out winner. A conversation is both of you are going out to be friends. And the conversation always continues, So a conversation is mainly for connection. You are stepping in so you can connect with them, learn a little bit about them, and be vulnerable. Be vulnerable, I don't know, it's okay. I feel bad. I don't know what to do. Like whenever people have said, I didn't do anything to the Native Americans, I didn't do anything to the Black people, I'm like, man, you're right away. That's the denial. That's the wall right there. No, you did not do it. You're not personally responsible. But denial is the first, it's a river in Egypt. It's not real, So here, let's start the conversation. Come in for connection. Come in to share. Come in to receive. Come in to have the conversation continue. And that's what I love about Ashley. That's why I came back again. And I will come back again and again because I want the conversation to continue. Don't come here to win. Don't come here to convince. Don't come here to corrupt. Come here to learn. Come here to connect. And come here to have this ... Let's continue. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you ladies for coming on here. This is like my favorite thing in the whole world to do. In fact, when I got into this, before I ever became a coach, I said, this is why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to have conversations. And I wanted to have conversations with women about things that we felt too ashamed to talk about, or we were just not being granted the space to talk. And because to me, I felt like there was so much bullshit around being a woman and the issues that we deal with, but we can't talk about it. Like if, not to take the light away from what you're hearing, but what bothered me always was hearing about all these women who suffered miscarriages and how they felt like it was their fault because they were just not allowed to have that space, or they were made to feel like they failed as a woman. And I said, these things, man, they kill me. And the further along I go into this, the more I realize that there's so much space for us to have these conversations, but it starts by people like us, like women like us, just showing up and having them. How do we expect people to know what to do if there's no good examples? Because I think it was, Amanda who said, I firmly believe, just seems like none of the government really is out to help the American people. Their interest. I'll tell you one thing, and this is why I agreed with Rashawn's getting rid of the 2-party system. Show me a politician that does not have a lobbyist sitting in its back pocket, and I will show you a politician that may have a shred of interest for the human people, okay? If you show me a lobbyist and their campaign is funded by corporate dollars, do not put any bets on them actually giving a shit about your rights as a human being on this planet, because all they're going to see is the profit first, profit over people. And I might get some shit for that, but I really don't care, because I can do enough I can show up enough research right now to show you how that is how it is. And going back again, I watched 13th, and it talked about the Democratic Party and everything that they have done to corrupt the system and leading into mass incarceration and everything else. So yeah, I will say that as a woman who is practicing allyship, the one thing that has benefited me is really just researching, like going out there. And when I have a question, and I'm grateful to have such amazing women like yourself. I know when this happened to Alyssa, I reached out to you, like what can I do to be a part of this conversation to facilitate? And Rashawn, I think I talked to you too. And it's just like, you know what? To do research, really understand. Every time something came up for me, instead of running to somebody like, oh, you know what, I know you have a million things going on right now, and you're not only dealing with your own trauma, but here, quell my curiosity for me. I would go out and I would research, and I would go, you know what question do I have now, and how can I find the answer for it? So being someone who wants to show up in a space of being a fierce ally, I'll say for any, especially white women out there, if you have questions, go Google shit, man. Just do your research and utilize that. Don't sit on it. Don't just like, oh, I got all this. I'm reading all the books and I'm watching all the Netflix specials. No, okay, well, go out and do something with it. Go out and do something. And, if you don't know where to start, ask yourself, what's the one issue right now that really causes you pain to see happen? And for me, it was knowing that I'm surrounded by amazing women, like Rashawn and Alyssa, and beautiful women of color who have so much talent. And to think that I might have an upper hand above them because I am white bothers me, because I believe in true sisterhood. And that means all of us being on equal footing, like true equal footing. And until we really are all equal, until Black lives truly matter, then, that all lives matter shit, that can go out the window. Like, if all lives matter, then, we wouldn't be having these conversations in the realest sense. So, ladies, if you want to come off mute for a moment, I just want to say thank you guys so much. If there's anything else you'd like to contribute before you leave, feel free to do that. So, but after that, we're going to go ahead and end this.
I just wanted to say thank you, Ashley. This was amazing. You are amazing. I love your platform. I love everything that you're doing. You're growing so much. And thank you for having us. And it was wonderful to meet you, Alyssa and Kia. This was quite an invigorating chat. So thank you so much to all of you beautiful ladies. And this inspires me. That, like Ashley said, this is why I'm in it, to win it with ladies like this. So I'm feeling really good about this. Thank you
this
so
was
much.
so much fun. I really it's just so nice to be able to have this type of conversation and to really just bounce off of each other and really understand I'm not in this alone, and we're all moving toward this together. And thank you for really putting this conversation out there. I'm looking at the chat, and there's so many people who are learning, and not just learning and listening, right? They're just I'm imagining them just taking notes, and they're yep, this is what I'm going to do next. And it's just thank you for holding that space, because this is what part of this work is bringing our experiences to the forefront, where people who already know you, now they'll know us, and now they'll know how to help. So thank you. I love this.
Thank you again. And ladies, really.
Yes. It has been such an honor, to be here again. Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Alyssa and Rashawn, for being here, and your beautiful selves, your beautiful souls. I don't know what to say. I'm just deep in awe, and I'm going to go out and just be in space.
Wow.
I really don't know what to say. Thank you. Thank you. And if you want to connect with me, I'm here. I'm here for both of you. I'm here for everyone, our audience. And thank you for the audience who showed up and those who will be watching it in replay. So thank you, everyone, for even taking time off your whatever busy schedule to listen to us and share with us and participate in the conversation over here. So yeah, and just go talk to someone else who has no clue or who has some clue but is like wondering, should I even say something about it? It's time to be vulnerable, because without being vulnerable, you'll never know your strength. And yeah,
All right.
that's it for tonight.
Amen to that. And like I said before, thank you guys for letting me be part of the conversation. I firmly feel like I definitely want to host more panels. I think it's really important that we just continue keep having the conversations, because what I hope does not happen is that a month from now we've just stopped having conversations altogether. Like I've seen happen way too much. Something bad will happen and we'll talk about it for a month, and something might look like it's changing, and then we stop and we go back. And back to something I think, Rashonda, you said at the beginning before we get off here, I think now what's coming up is all the pain that we've stored, because we all know at some I think all of you know on a spiritual level, when we go through traumas, we store it in our body as an energetic imprint. And so what's coming up at some point in your life, and if you've gone through a healer, you know this, that imprint comes up for you to deal with, and you have the choice to move it out of you after you've dealt with it, or to retain, to keep retaining it. So I think the Earth's energetic trauma is coming up, and now we have the opportunity to go, okay, we can heal this and move this out of ourselves. So, but again, it starts with having conversations. If you feel like you don't know where to start, just start having a conversation. Like, that's really the simplest thing. Like, dude, just have a conversation and I'll say this one more thing before we go. The biggest thing that I had to take out of this was my own ego, and believing that if I showed up, I was going to look stupid. So which meant that would keep me from asking questions or saying things. And it may not be the right thing, but that leaves the gate open for me to be educated on why this may not be the best way to talk about things or look at things. So even if you feel like you're going to say something stupid, I'm not saying don't censor yourself, but ask the questions and don't be afraid to look stupid, because it's not that you're stupid. It's just maybe you just don't know. And this will open up an opportunity for you to have a chance to learn. So thank you guys so much. I look forward to really having more. Like, I want to have as many of these as possible. I think this is how we change the world, is just one conversation at a time. Just one conversation at a time, What is it Michael Jackson said? If you're looking for a way to change the world, look in the mirror and start with yourself. I know I botched that up, all the shit, but it's okay.
I'm looking at the man in the mirror and asking him to change his ways.
Yes, there you go. So there you go. All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, guys. I'll see you guys.
You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Hugs, 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 hugs. Yeah.
You guys,
Free hugs.
7:30 p.m.